Hi everybody, it's Beth from Beehive Yarns and welcome to my Knitting and Yarn Craft podcast. It's been a long time since I last did one of these and I'm a bit out of practice, so please bear with me. Looking back, it was November last year I think that I last did a podcast, so no particular reason behind that. It wasn't intentional, the big break or anything like that. I just hadn't got round to it. So I've got quite a bit to show you today, quite a bit of news as well. So yeah, let's get into it. I think what I'll do is I'll start off with some FOs, one of which you'll possibly recognise from my last podcast way back when, and then I'll jump into what I'm currently working on, sort of the standard format, and then I'll talk a little bit about the shop at the end of the podcast. So if you're not interested so much in Beehive Yarns as the shop, then by all means you can kind of skip that part. But full disclosure, what I'm showing you today has been knit out of my own yarn, my own hand-dyed yarn. So yeah, lots of colours to show you and things like that. So yeah, where shall I start? So last time I saw you, I was working on this sweater, which is called the Strata Pullover, I think it's called. Strata Sweater or Strata Pullover by Tiff Nealon. And yeah, that's finished now. I probably finished this in late November time, and as you can see, I still haven't finished it off, so there's an awful lot of ends there to weave in still, and I haven't blocked it, and I honestly cannot tell you why that is, other than the fact that at the point I finished it, I was so anxious to get onto some stuff for Christmas, which I'll show you next, that I probably just kind of left it. Well, I know I did. I left it on my shelf up there waiting to be blocked. So yeah, that's why it hasn't finished. So I love it. It was a really, really lovely pattern. I'll just hold it so you can see it a little bit better. It's a calls for worsted. I knit it in DK yarn, but the pattern does call for worsted. And yeah, you need 4 different colours. Really simple kind of slip stitch and colour work, stranded colour work, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So have a bash at that if you fancy sort of nice DK sweater. Obviously we're coming into the time of year, certainly in the northern hemisphere anyway, we're moving into sort of springtime now, so it would have been too hot for me to wear this anyway because it's quite warm here. But yeah, if you're looking for a nice sort of big jumper, then that is something I would recommend. And I knit this from our Folklore DK yarn, which is, I know I've spoken about in the past. It's a blend of British wool, entirely non-superwash and untreated, and it's a blend of Blueface Leicester and Massam, or Masham. The correct pronunciation of the place is actually Massam. I'm not quite sure if the wool is also Massam or if it's Masham. It's spelt Masham, but you say Massam, I believe. So yeah, so this is the kind of the main body, as you can see, is knit in colourway called Ship Shape, which is like a soft navy blue. And then I did the accents, or the colour work in these 3 colours here. And I used up some leftovers that I'd already knit projects with. So these are the full skeins, obviously, but I kind of, in some of it, I used 4-ply held double just to kind of use up some scraps of the projects that I've been working on. So this light grey is called Pebble. This bright pink, sort of fuchsia pink, is called Mischief, and I had knit a shawl in this previously, so that's the leftovers that I used. And then the kind of blue is called Glacier. So yeah, like I said, it's been a long time me showing it, but it's actually been sat finished for quite a while, and I just need to get my ass into gear and sew these ends in and get it blocked. As I'm showing it, as I'm holding it up, it's looking quite big. It's always hard to tell, I think, with sweaters because obviously you're holding them flat. So I'll see what it's like when it's blocked. In terms of size and things, I can't remember what I actually went for in the end. It will be in my Ravelry notes, I think, if you want to have a look on there if you're interested. But like I said, I knit it in DK yarn rather than worsted, and I think I kind of did a bit of tweaking with the needles and things in terms of getting gauge, but other than that I knit it exactly as written. So yeah, Tiff does beautiful patterns. She's got a really kind of vivid style, lots of kind of stripes, lots of kind of really soft colour work, and they're beautifully written as well, so I would recommend them if you hadn't tried one already. So yes, so that's my lovely woolly winter sweater. So that's done. That's my first FO to show you. The next one is also a winter, well, to me it was a winter project because I made it with our advent calendar, our yarn advent calendar from last year. And I actually made it as a gift for my mum. I finished it, I definitely didn't finish it in time for Christmas. I think I might have finished it in time for New Year. And I've shown her it and she absolutely loves it, but I haven't actually let her keep it because I said I wanted to show it to you guys. So bless her, we're now in May and she's still not had it. But here we go. So I'll try and hold it up. It's massive. It's a blanket, as you can see. Ooh. And this is the Habitation Throw by Helen Stewart, or Curious Handmade is her business name. And you can see it's, I'm sure many of you will have knit this pattern. This is the third Habitation Throw I've made. But it's a lovely kind of very simple lace eyelet design. You can make it as big as you like. And I think it was intentionally written as a means of using up mini skeins in Yarn Advent. Obviously you can use scraps, you could use full colours. In a version I previously knit, I just chose sort of 4 or 5 colours and did it in those. But yeah, it's really lovely for using up Advents, and it's the second Advent Habitation Fair I've done. I made one for my grandma last year, or rather the year before. Sorry, just have a drink. And that lives with her. When she moved into sort of an assisted living apartment, I made her it then, so that lives with her on her sofa. And like I said, this one is for my mum, and it's very much my mum's kind of colour scheme. I'm not sure how well I'm being able to share. I'll try and pop some pictures in as well, and if you have a look on my Instagram, there's some pictures there. But our advent calendar last year was called A Year at the Cabin, and it was based, I know I've talked about this before, it was based sort of loosely on the books of Laura Wilder and Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's based loosely on the books of Laura Ingalls Wilder, especially sort of Little House in the Big Woods, and therefore it's very much nature themed. The colourways are very much nature themed and kind of went in seasons. So you can almost sort of see here, if I start at the beginning, start with spring, sort of move from darker greens into lighter greens and peaches, and then into summer, which is very much these kind of rose hip and reds and yellows and ochres, and then into autumn, which are the kind of the reds and the browns, and then back into sort of browns and greens again for winter. So again, apologies, you can't really sort of see it in all its glory held up like that, but you get the idea. So it's a really quick and satisfying knit. Obviously it's a big blanket, so it takes a while. It's knit in 4-ply yarn, but I found it a really enjoyable project over December. So that's kind of why I was in a rush really with the strata sweater, was to get this done for my mum. So bless her, now I've shown you it, she can actually have it. And it will go nicely with her kind of living room decor. I think she's got some sort of quite bright autumnal colours in there, so hopefully she'll enjoy that. So yeah, that's my second FO. And if you have knit a habitation throw, I'd love to see it. So if you pop in the comments, I'd know a link to your Ravelry page or your Ravelry ID. I'd love to have a look at those, because I really like this pattern. And I can see that, I can tell you now that it's not going to be my last one. I can see me knitting one next year as well. So that's that. If you haven't knit one then, and you're looking for a knit blanket pattern, then I would suggest this. We've got, I'm going to talk a bit about yarn as we go this episode. I often leave it till the end, but because I'm kind of showing you things that I've made recently, it corresponds to yarn that we have in the shop. So excusing the crinkling, you can see here, this is the summer palette from the advent calendar. You may be wondering why I'm holding up an advent calendar in May, but I had lots of requests to kind of re-dye the colourways, which I am doing as kind of these mini sets spaced throughout the year, because it helped me in terms of dyeing schedule, but also I think in terms of payment, you know, for people who don't want to necessarily be paying out for another advent calendar in January. So yeah, if the colourways float your boat, this is the summer collection which we're on now. There's some left in the shop, and then I'll be re-dyeing. That doesn't sound right, does it? I'm not re-dyeing it. You know what I mean. I'm kind of dyeing them again as a pre-order. The autumn ones probably in June, so keep your eye open if you're interested in this or knitting something similar. One of the best things about doing advent calendars, because they're a lot of work and they're not everybody's cup of tea. Lots of people like them, lots of people don't. But one of the best things as a dyer is seeing what people make with them, because I think it can be quite overfacing, 24 or 25 mini skeins, what do I make? And there's some lovely patterns out there. I've put together kind of a collection both on my Instagram stories and on Pinterest. So if you can dip in and have a look at some knit and crochet patterns for mini skeins and advents. But for me as a dyer, seeing what customers have made is the best thing. It's the best thing in the world. So often in kind of January, February time, I get sent lots of pictures or tagged in pictures online of people's projects, and we've had sweaters, we've had other blankets, baby wear, you name it, absolutely everything. At a show that I was vending at last year, a lady came up and she was wearing a jumper that she'd made with that year's advent calendar, and it's just, so you can imagine, it's lovely to see. So yeah, if you had a Beehive advent calendar last year, I'd love to hear what you made. Okay, right, next up is we're going to move into socks. So if you are not a sock knitter, I kind of apologise because I've got a lot of socks to show. But this is just the zone that I've been in this part of the year leading up to now. So I've knit lots of socks. I've put lots of sock sets together for the shop. And yeah, I'm continuing to enjoy knitting socks. My FOs are socks as well. So I'll show you what I have. And because it's kind of been winter into spring since we last spoke, I've got a bit of a mixture. And I'll just hold them up. I think it's the quickest thing to do and talk you through. So this one is for me. It's in our colourway Sarsaparilla, is the kind of purpley colour here, and Cemetery Gates for the contrast. And it's hard to show it on camera. It is kind of like a deep plum colour with different coloured speckles. And I knit this for myself. I did a 5x1 rib, which I won't do again. It was an experiment, but actually I don't know if you can even tell that it's ribbed. And it doesn't have that nice sort of spring and give that you get with a ribbed sock, which I really like. So I wouldn't do a 5x1 rib again, but I really love these socks, and I've called them on Ravelry, on my project page on Ravelry, my Dark Academia socks, because I was rereading The Secret History by Donna Tartt when I knit them, and also the colours just really remind me of that kind of aesthetic. There'll be more of that this year. I'm just going to leave that there. So yeah, that's a sarsaparilla. I did have these sock sets in the shop. They've all gone. What I'm going to do with sock sets is just keep topping them up. I'll talk a bit more about the shop later on, obviously. But I would like to have a combo of pre-order updates where people can choose what base they want. And I'm kind of dying to order. Obviously, sometimes that works really well for me because I don't have, excess of particular stock, or I don't run out of things too quickly, but also I'm somebody who very much appreciates having in-stock items as well. So if I'm looking to shop from somebody, knowing that I can go to their website and find something there. So that's the kind of blend that I'm going for this year, is to always have something in the shop, but also to offer these kind of pre-orders at some point during the year, but not to have too much of one of the other. So sock sets is something that I'll be topping up as we go, really. So this one sold out a little while ago, but I'll be dyeing some more sarsaparilla or Dark Academia. Next one is another wintry type sock set. This one's called Cozy Cocoa. It's actually a colourway from our yarn advent in 2021, which came back. I'm not sure how well it's shown up on screen, but it's like a lovely kind of rich brown and red speckle. And then the mini skein that came with it is called Maple, which is one of our kind of standard tonal colours. And this is just a vanilla sock. It's actually the first DK sock I ever knit. So I made this. I made the first one a little while ago, maybe even a year ago, and then I finished the second one more recently, and had these sets in the shop as well for winter. But yeah, DK socks, it was the first one I ever tried, and I am a convert. They're so quick, as you can imagine, and not quite as bulky as I thought they would be. So yeah, definitely recommend a DK sock. I just used a vanilla sock pattern. I can't recall, I think it was a free pattern, I can't quite recall whose it was, but I did my normal vanilla sock way of knitting, if that makes sense, which is with a afterthought heel and the toe that I always use. So it was a bit of a kind of Frankenstein hybrid. So yeah, that one, Cozy Cocoa and Maple, that's also for me. And then we kind of move on to some sets that I did for spring. And because my advent calendar, the cabin advent calendar, was kind of split into seasons, like I explained, there was a few sort of colourways from the spring season that I wanted to bring back as main colours, and this is one of them. This is called Grass Flower, and this time it's a 4x2, just checking, 4x2 rib, which is like my go-to really. I cast on 60 stitches for myself, for a sock for myself. I do like my socks quite snug. I know often people will use 64 stitches. A lot of patterns are sort of, you know, to be divisible by 4 are written for 64 stitches. I personally cast on 60 and split them over 3 needles until I have to split them over 4 for the toe. I'm probably not explaining that very well. I did promise to do a video on how I knit socks, and I will do it. But yeah, in the meantime, that's how my go-to 60 stitches, a few rows of here it's 2x2 ribbon, and then into a 4x2 rib for the body of the sock. So obviously anything divisible by 6 is going to work with a 60 stitch sock. And like I said, this is called Grass Flower. It's a sort of speckled neutral with little green bits, and this contrast here, which is a colourway I came up with specifically to go with this. It goes with lots of other colours, and it's literally written, the recipe's written on a post-it note in my studio, and I think it's called Sludgy Green. So I don't know if I'll ever bring it in as a proper colour. I can't call it that. I don't know what I'd call it, but Sludgy Green seemed to fit. So that's Grass Flower and Sludgy Green. And then the next sock, so that's again one of my vanilla socks and the pattern that I follow myself. And then the next ones are actual bought patterns by designers. So these are lovely. They've got a lot more interest in them. I think you can see it better that way. You can see the lovely lace pattern going down here. This pattern is called the Sentimental Socks. It's by Danny from Little Bobbins. She's done lots of lovely sweet sock patterns. They're always quite sort of simple and effective, which is how I think socks should be. And it was a really lovely change from working on sort of standard ribbed or stockinette socks to go into a pattern. I'm not really big on all over pattern socks, like just for me personally, my own personal taste. I prefer it if there's like something of interest in one place, if that makes sense. So a kind of lace panel is really good for that. And again, you can see it better on that side, so if I hold it up that way. I did do a proper, the called for heel in the pattern, so it's a proper kind of turned heel rather than my normal one. And the colourway I used is called Flower Crown. So you can see it's a beigey pinky base with lots of sort of different coloured speckles. There's red, there's sort of fuchsia, there's green. Again, not entirely certain how well it's showing up, but I have the sock set here to show you in case that looks a bit better. So you can see it doesn't necessarily look knit up how you're going to think it is. Comes with this mini in Cozy Up, that's that colourway, and you can see the kind of different speckles in there. So yeah, that's called Flower Crown. There's some of those in the shop at the moment. There's some of Grass Flower, the previous one as well. That's it on DK sock. So when I offer sock sets, I normally do them. I did like a poll on my Instagram stories a little while ago to see how people like to knit their socks and what they like to use. And as you can imagine, there was a whole split really. But I tend to do them on 100 gram and 20 gram skein like this, which will easily get you a pair of socks. You can also use that sock set for a shawl, for a hat, for mittens. I've got a blog post on my website which has got some pattern ideas for sock sets which aren't socks. So by all means go and have a look there. I just think there's some nice gift ideas as well. So yeah, that's 100 grams plus 20 grams. This is DK sock, so it's got some nylon in there for durability and a little DK mini skein. Again, I find this ample for a pair of socks for myself. I've also made some socks for my husband at Christmas time out of DK, because I wanted to see how far a skein of DK could go. He's got very large feet, sort of between size 12 and 13 feet UK. And I was really surprised, because I managed very easily with lots of leftovers to make him a pair of ankle socks, or relatively good size socks. So yeah, it would be plenty really for a pair, even for larger feet. I'm not showing you them because he's been wearing them constantly since Christmas, and they're not fit to be shown. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, the third kind of sock set that I do is a 50-gram skein. So this one is called Nougat, which is like a pale pink with speckles in, and the tonal's called Velveteen. It's a darker pink. It's showing up a bit lighter on the screen there, but this is a 50-gram sock set, so you get 50-gram main colour, 20-gram mini skein, and this is typically what I would use for socks for myself. I often use up leftovers from other projects and things like that. I might go into a main skein if I've got plenty of them in the shop, but typically for me to knit a pair of socks like this, 50 plus 20 is ample. And I've had quite a lot of questions about that, understandably, because my feet are not small. I'm a UK size 7, which is sizable for a woman's feet, and yeah, so, and it's obviously a much smaller version of the yarn, but I do find knitting them like this, either with a contrast toe and a contrast heel, or a contrast toe and a contrast cuff with the mini, and then the 50 grams for 2 socks is plenty. Like I mentioned, I use 60 stitch cast on, and I like my socks quite snug. It's not by any means a short leg length. I think I've measured them before, and I do usually knit for about 16 centimetres before the heel. What else can I say? I use 2.25 millimetre needles. So yeah, you can kind of gauge that. I always have a little bit left. It's plenty for me. I know there are people who can't manage to get a pair of socks out of 50 grams. Obviously, I can't speak for everybody's gauge, the needle size they're using, you know, the leg length and things like that. But certainly I know that it works for me. So I often have those in the shop. It's a bit of a cheaper option as well, because obviously you're not buying so much yarn. Where was I? Right, my last sock to show you is another DK sock. So this again is on our darling DK sock base. It's merino nylon. This is another pattern. I just need to look it up actually. It's called I think you say Selena or Kaylana socks by a lady on Instagram called Professor Pearl, or Prof Pearl. She's at Prof Pearl on Instagram. I'm afraid I can't remember her full name on the pattern. I'll have to look it up, and I'll pop it in the description bar later. But it's again a really, really lovely, effective sock. It's written for DK. And it's just a simple all over pattern, and I think it really shows off speckled yarn. I chose to knit it all in one colour, obviously no contrast there, and yeah, I just think it looks lovely in this kind of subtle speckle. This colourway is called Cotton Frocks. It's one of the spring colours from our advent set, no, summer colours from our advent set, which I now can't find. Here we go. This one in the middle, and it's probably a colourway that I'll keep in the shop. There's some there at the moment, I think, and yeah, it's just really pretty, pale with sort of like dark pink and greeny speckles. So that is my sock knitting odyssey. I'm obviously only showing you one of each. Most of them are a full pair, and the intention is for me to wear them at some point. But this one I've only knit one of so far, because I was getting ready to launch these colourways and these sock sets in the shop, and I wanted to obviously get some samples knit up. So I kind of just did one sock, which is why socks are such a perfect way to sort of show off colourways in yarn, really, when you're a dyer. Okay, so lots of socks there. Some of those sock sets, like I said, are still in the shop available. Others have sold out, but it's my intention to top up the shop with seasonal sock sets throughout the year. So my next move will be to re-dye some of those up, but also move into our kind of more summer tones, which will be coming out soon. Yeah, those are my socks. Final pair of socks to show you, my final FO, I think, are some socks for my husband. And these are fresh off the needles day before yesterday. I absolutely love these. They've come out so well. Apologies, I don't have a sock blocker that's anywhere near big enough for my husband's feet. And holding them like that, they don't look that massive. As I've kind of mentioned several times, he has really big feet, but like me, likes the socks to be really snug. And boy, does he like handmade socks. So I've been knitting for 10 or 12 years possibly, and I made my husband his first pair of socks last year, and he absolutely loved them. So that's just so nice, isn't it? It's heartwarming when somebody really appreciates what you've made for them. And he wears them all the time, like genuinely wears them. He says they're a lot warmer. He works outside quite a lot, and you know, they keep his feet sort of dry, keeps them warm, and he loves them. So I'm just going to keep knitting. I'm just going to keep on going. You know, there's a lot of knitting in this, but it's good TV knitting. So I just did a really simple my vanilla sock, which is a rib. I did 4x2 rib again. I did this time the cuff. He likes a longer cuff than I do, so I did him a long stretchy cuff, which is 1x1 twisted rib. Then it moves into the 4x2, like I mentioned, and there's a contrast colour there for the toe. And then I did an afterthought heel. And for this is 4-ply. For him, I think I cast on 68 stitches. I'll count them later, but I'm pretty sure it was 68. No, because it's a 4x2 rib. 66 stitches, I think. Again, I'll confirm. Because I've had because I've mentioned on previous podcasts about knitting socks for my husband. I did have quite a lot of questions about that. So I'll double check for you. And I've got somewhere, yeah, this is the leftovers. So out of 100 gram skein, this is our Bardot sock base. I've got it here, look. This is the colourway. I'll talk about it in a sec. Meterage wise, it's 365 meters for 100 gram skein. I weighed this a moment ago and I have 40 grams left. So his entire pair of socks, the body, not the contrast, but the body of them only took 60-ish grams. So I was quite surprised by that, actually. And it's just good to know, isn't it? It's good to know that you can get a pair of Bloke's big socks, or anyone's big socks, out of a single skein of yarn. The colourway that I used is a new one. It's not in the shop. It's going to be around in autumn, and it has got a name, but I won't share it just yet. But I really love it. So this was the first test batch. It's a really kind of murky grey colour with lots of brown and blues and some sort of pops of very bright sapphire, and it knits up like this. And I really like these. I'm trying not to give too much away about autumn. It's very unusual for me to have my year planned out. I think I've mentioned it previously. I am garbage at planning stuff, and it's not that I don't. Yeah, I'm just not like that. I just kind of tend to sort of fly by the seat of my pants. But this year I've got collections planned out, and I'm so excited for them. So yeah, I won't say too much more. But that's the yarn, and I have to say I love it. Bardot, which is a high twist merino nylon sock yarn, the base is called Bardot, is my favourite sock yarn that we carry. It's really lovely. It has slightly less nylon than our Audrey sock yarn. Not that you can feel the nylon in the Audrey sock yarn, which is also extremely soft. Obviously makes it really durable. It's slightly plumper, and I just love it. I really like high twist sock yarns. I know some people prefer a smooth one, but this is my fave. Okay, right. That is all my FOs. I feel like I've rattled through that. I haven't mentioned what I'm wearing. but I will. It's an old FO. I wear it all the time. It's of course the Zweig sweater by Caitlin Hunter, Boylan Knitworks. I probably knit it about 4 years ago. Probably see a little better there. It's made out of colourways that I typically don't dye anymore, but looking at it, it's actually very similar to Ship Shape, isn't it? Wow, that's a bit spooky. Ship Shape's a bit bluer. This one I think was called Double Denim, and this is Aquarius, which is a lovely kind of summery speckle, very bright for me, for Beehive, but I've got some really bright things coming, and this is where I like to use them. So I'm all for a lovely speckly sock. I'm probably not going to ever wear an entire outfit of bright colours because I'm you know, a recovering goth, but also in this kind of scenario, in colour work, I think it looks lovely. I really like the contrast. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. And I'll have some brighter colours like this soon. They're just a lot more fun to dye as well. I love dyeing colours like this. These are my vibe, you know. I'll always love these kind of more muted tones, and will gravitate towards them. But it is really fun when summer comes along and I get to do something a bit poppy and a bit retro. So yeah, that's that. And so I'll move on to what I'm currently working on. I've just got a list in front of me. If you wonder what I'm doing looking down there, I'll just check what I have done. Okay, I'm on to whips. So I've got a few at the moment. I'll start with socks. I cast these on yesterday, the night before I think, Sunday evening, it's Tuesday now. As soon as I finished my husband's socks, I literally cast that off and cast on these for myself. And again, it's got a lovely lace panel. Can you see that? So pretty. This pattern is a free pattern available on the internet. It's called Super Glazed Socks. I'm afraid I can't remember the pattern designer, or the website, but I'll pop the link and the details in the description bar. And it is really, it's a stockinette sock, but with this really sweet, simple lace panel, which is slightly offset. So the left and the right socks are going to be knit slightly differently so that the panel's on the front of the sock. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. It's a 4-row lace repeat. I don't feel like I'm giving too much away, but like, as I said, it's a free pattern. And it's easily memorable. So after I'd done maybe 2 repeats, I'd remembered it. Hence why I don't have the pattern details here, because it's just stuck in my mind. But yeah, I've been watching that while I watched Fatal Attraction the other day. And did quite a lot on it yesterday, because it's Bank Holiday Monday here in the UK yesterday, and we had some nice weather. We went to visit my mother-in-law. It was really lovely. I sat in the garden, well, went out for a lovely long walk with the dog, and then sat in the garden and I got some knitting done. So yeah, that's that one. And I've just realised, just bear with me one sec, I'm going to pause you. Ta-da! The magic of technology. I hadn't got the sock set available, but here it is. So this is in the shop as well. The eagle-eyed among you will remember sludgy green, because I think it goes really nicely with this colour as well, so I kind of reused it. And the main colour is called Naiad, and it's a very soft bluey, lavendery, greyy with lots of speckles. So it's got some sort of lavender speckles, it's got this green, this kind of lichen green speckle, and it knits up like this. This colourway's been around for a little while. I've knit a top in it before, Mount Pleasant Tea in Naiad. I pulled this out of the shop, a 50-gram set for myself to use, and I chose it specifically because it didn't have quite so many speckles on, and I didn't really want it in the shop. So the version that I have here knitted up is much more subtle than the colourway normally has. It would normally have a few more of the sort of the green speckles. But there you go, that's Naiad. And sludgy green again. I am surrounded by sock sets. So that's whip number 1. And the rate that I'm going through these, I'll have a pair probably within a week, and it's perfect TV knitting. So yeah, really enjoying those. I'll get on sock knitting kicks, and then I'll go back to a garment and I'll get stuck on garments for a bit. I think probably a lot of people are like that. I usually have some socks on the needles, just because it's really good sort of relaxing knit. But like at the moment, obviously I've been pumping them out. That's quite unusual for me, but it's because I wanted to kind of do some stuff with the new colourways. And also it's just I was in that zone. Do you get in the sock zone? It might be that after these I kind of knock it off and I go on to something else. I definitely want to do a new garment. I haven't done one since the strata top, so I'm definitely in line for a new jumper. Okay, so my next whip is not socks, you'll be pleased to hear. Very different. Now this is knit out of mohair, so, and obviously it's a whip, so it hasn't been blocked yet, so it's quite difficult to see the pretty pattern, the pretty lace pattern, because mohair really does sort of bunch up. This is called the Meadow Sweet Shawl, and it's by My Cup of Knitting. It came out last week, I think. Just take my glasses off actually. Yeah, it was published last week. I actually signed up to do the test knit, with huge apologies to Sarah, the designer, if you are indeed watching this, Sarah. And I've obviously already apologised. I didn't get it finished for the deadline, but it is a beautiful pattern, lovely, well written, and very simple. So it's panels of garter and panels of lace, which is my kind of dream knitting, really. I do like knitting lace. And it's written for 4-ply, but I asked Sarah in advance of the test starting and asked her if I could try in 2 strands of mohair held together, just because I just fancied doing something a little bit different. And she said, oh yes, I'd be happy to see that. I'd like to see what that looks like. So it's going to be like an elongated triangular shawl when it's finished. I've still got maybe half of the way to go. But again, that's really nice TV knitting. You do have to pay attention with the lace panels, obviously. But yeah, it's really nice, and I think when it's finished will just be a lovely kind of float, and blocked it will be a lovely kind of floaty shawl. It also looks nice as designed in the 4-ply as well, so yeah, I can definitely recommend that. Now I've used mohair in the colourway Crema, which as you can see is a very light neutral. It's not undyed. I think I've shown this before. Making a crochet blanket with this. It's not undyed. It's like a rice puddingy, creamy colour, which is lovely, but I don't think really suits me. I'd love to have my colours done. Has anyone had their colours done? I don't think this suits me and my skin tone. So in a first, what I might do when I've finished knitting it, I might actually over dye it. I don't know how that's going to work, particularly with it being mohair. I can't see that it would be any different to dyeing yarn, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't know, I might dye it into maybe that kind of colour. I don't know, what do you think? Or even like a very pale grey, maybe is a colour that I maybe would wear more frequently. So yeah, a lovely pattern. I really love Crema. It's probably one of my favourite tonals that we have in the shop, but I just don't think it necessarily suits me, because obviously a shawl's meant to go around your face and stuff. Hopefully I will plod on and get this done soon. I can also see that it might languish a bit, not because I'm not enjoying it, but because it's one of those projects that's quite repetitive, so you're kind of knitting, you know, the same pattern, which is good, it's memorable, but also if I'm going to start a garment or something, I'll probably put more time into that than I would something like this, but we'll wait and see. I do want to get it made. Maybe I'll gift it, I don't know, but I would like to actually have a go at over dyeing it, and can share the results with you. Yeah, so hopefully that would work. Right, what else have I to show you? So that was the Meadow Sweet Shawl by My Cup of Knitting. That's all the whips I've got at the moment, so not much. So I'm knitting a shawl, I've got my socks, and I've got my crochet blanket, which I haven't brought to show you because it has not moved. Well, I've done a bit on it, but it doesn't look massively different since the last time I showed you it. So it's this kind of stripy granny stripe blanket in DK. I want to say I've got maybe a metre of it done. I'm not gravitating towards it, I have to say, and I think that's because I made it too wide. When I did the foundation chain, I think I kind of measured a double bed. No, did I? Or maybe I just winged it. And I think what I've done is I've made it too wide for it to be like a nice easy throw, because it's quite a heavy DK. And already, having done like maybe 3 pattern repeats of the colours, it's very, very heavy, which is fine. But it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. It's not going to be a lap blanket. It's going to be sort of a bed blanket. And I think in hindsight, if I'd have made it smaller, it would have been more incentive to get it finished, and I could have just sort of thrown it over the back of the sofa or something. So that's my learning, really. So yeah, I don't know, do you do stuff like that? You live and learn, don't you? You live and learn. Sorry, I'm playing with my hair a lot. I'll get told off. Okay, what do I have to talk about next? It's going to be a lot of shop waffle today. Sock waffle, shop waffle, but it is what it is. I do want to show you a couple of acquisitions. Have I got them both here? I've got this one. I don't buy very much yarn. I do have yarn by the dyers, but I tend not to buy a lot of yarn because obviously I have a lot of yarn. It's nothing against other dyers and their styles at all. Self-striping, for example, I do not dye, wouldn't have a clue, wouldn't know where to start self-striping. So I occasionally buy self-striping sock from another dyer, but I don't have anything in the way of yarn acquisitions to share with you for that reason. But I do have a beautiful bag acquisition, which is Dream. This has just got bits and pieces of like leftover sock yarn in from previous projects, so I won't show you what's inside because it's a mess. But yeah, lovely sized, perfect for a pair of socks, something like that, smaller project. Drawstring bag. This is by Jackie at Soft Accents. I've mentioned Jackie before. I met her at Yarndale last year. Lovely, lovely lady, and she just makes the most beautiful bags in this kind of African print. She also does like some retro prints as well, but I was really gravitating towards this. So I bought this a little while ago. And it's beautifully made, you know, it's got all pockets in and bits like that. So have a look at Soft Accents. I know she's busy doing a lot of shows in the UK at the moment, so she's probably knackered. Hi Jackie. And yeah, I've spied some of the beautiful prints that she's got. She's been making for shows, so I'm hoping, you know, if she does a shop update or something, I can snag another one. So don't buy them all, you know, leave me one. But they're really lovely bags. So that's that. Speaking of shows, so I guess we're kind of moving on to the waffle bit now. I am not going to be doing any yarn shows this year. I mentioned that because I normally do 1 or 2. Obviously we had COVID, etc., and that upset the apple cart. Last year I did 2 shows up here, which is North Yorkshire. I did the Yorkshire Yarn Fest, and then I did Yarndale, which is a wonderful show in Skipton. I'm sure many of you, if you're based in the UK or maybe even in Europe, have visited Yarndale. It's my favourite show. It's very local to me, and yeah, I think I've vended maybe 4 or 5 times at Yarndale. It's a lovely way to meet people as well. I always really welcome the opportunity to meet customers and have a good natter. But this year I've decided not to do any shows, just for various reasons really, other things sort of happening in life. So I'm having a bit of a break, and in a way I mean, I'm sure I'll feel a bit sad when some of these shows roll around, but in a way it's really good because it means I can kind of focus on other areas of the business, and that's a really big part of the plan for me, is to kind of look at where I want the shop to go, where, you know, spend a bit more time doing other collections. What typically happens to me, and I don't mind admitting this, is that I've got a son, he's 9, so school holidays, he's off school. So all the way through the summer, I'll start dyeing my advent calendars, which are, you know, as I've mentioned, a big task, a big sort of chunk of dyeing and winding and stuff. And I'm trying to juggle that with childcare and obviously spending time and enjoying the summer. And then slap bang in the middle of that will come Yarndale Festival, which I always love and enjoy, but I get very stressed about it because it kind of, it's right in the middle of this kind of Advent season. And then typically I breathe a big sigh of relief when I get all the Advents out of the door in October, but in the meantime I haven't had any shop updates. Halloween's been and gone, which is like my favourite holiday of the year. You know, I haven't had time to do my Christmas stock, and I'm all a fluster because I've kind of, everything's been put into Yarndale and the Advent. So I'm determined to do things a little bit differently this year. As I said earlier, I've got lots of plans in terms of collections for sort of autumn, winter time. And yeah, it'd be nice to sort of see how that goes. I will miss the yarn shows, I will miss the face-to-face, but I will be going. So I'm planning to go to Yarndale as a punter. So yeah, hopefully maybe I'll see you there if I'm wandering around. It's really good fun, but I won't be vending at any shows myself this year. I don't know about next year yet, we'll wait and see. So that's the first bit of Beehive news. And then I'm just going to ramble about stuff that's happening with the business, what we've got on at the moment, what we've got coming up, a little bit about our yarn club. So, and I'll show some examples. So if you are not here for you know, the Beehive Yarns shop and what we've got, then feel free to drift off, or if you don't like to hear me waffle about anything, feel free to go. So there's my whips and everything out of the way. So moving on then, shop. I've just seen these on my desk and I thought I'll show you these because these have gone crazy in the shop recently. And I think it's because they're quite hard to get hold of as a seller. I buy these wholesale floops. They're made in Vermont in North America, handmade I believe. They make stitch markers and these groovy little things called flocks, which are, I quote, cable needle, stitch holder, stitch marker, dropped stitch fixer, that's where I like to use it best, seam baster. You can use it for whatever the hell you want. They are so handy to have in your little notions pouch or your project bag. I've used them as cable needles. I've used them, like I said, predominantly for picking up drop stitches, and they're super handy. They come in lots of groovy colours, that's orange, and then they come in patterns as well. This one's called Morgan. Don't know how well you can see that. And as I said, I've had a huge run on them recently, and these are the stitch markers. They're like mini hair bubbles. Really lovely. As I said, I get them wholesale from America to stock in our online shop and take to shows and things. And I think, you know, because they're sort of handmade by a small business, they run out of stock quite easily. So yeah, I've got some still in stock, so we've had quite a run on them. So I thought I'd show you them. If you've not come across a flocks or a floop before, they're cool little gadgets to have. And I shall be getting some more in, but there's still some in the shop. Okay, shop. Right, what are we up to? What have I got to tell you? Our mystery yarn club this year is an absolute joy. I've really enjoyed it so far. So what have we just done? We've just done April. May's up in the shop now. I offer this as a sort of subscription, or you can just sign up for a single month, leave whenever you like. Absolutely no you know, no holds there. And I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all our previous clubs actually. Last year we did Enchanted, the year before we did Crystal Visions. This year it's called Simple Pleasures, and the idea is that each month I share an image. The yarn's sort of dyed in terms of the palette of that image, but each of the themes are around, you know, sort of taking moments in life to sort of appreciate things. The first month was called Breathe, the second one was called Ritual, the third one, March, was called Blossom, so it was looking at sort of cherry blossoms, and last month, April, was called Awaken, and the sort of inspiration picture is of some eggs, a dish full of sort of lovely eggs. In fact, there it is, look. Again, apologies for the glare if you can't see that. And in the club I offer a pack of mini skeins, so 5 mini skeins like this on your choice of base. Those are the egg ones. Those are the ones from the first month. Breathe. So yeah, you can get the mini skeins, or you can get a sock set, or you can get just a single skein, whatever you fancy. So this is last month's Awaken sock set. Got some spares, so you can see it's kind of a duck egg blue with darker bits and brown speckles, and that's the little mini that came with it. It's coming up a bit brighter actually on the screen than it is in real life, but yeah. I've got some of the, you know, I don't know, I dyed too many this month. I don't know why. I obviously can't do very good maths. So yeah, I just wanted to mention the club. I've so far our most successful club to date in terms of numbers and people, you know, staying with it and seeming to enjoy it. It is my favourite to dye. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of pared down, simple colours. I'm really enjoying it. Next month is Celebration, rather this month, May. So the images of a birthday cake, I haven't got anything to show you, it'll be on my Instagram, etc. It's of a big juicy birthday cake, and that is because selfishly it's my birthday in May, but also in the spirit of the club, it's about celebrating the small things in life, isn't it? And I think if you can celebrate small things in life with a bit of cake, all the better. So that, yeah, that's in the shop now. Have a look if you're interested in mystery yarn clubs. I always dye extra, and then I'm going to start putting them in the shop sort of every quarter. So if you miss a month, or you don't like surprises and mysteries and you want to see what you're buying, then there will be opportunity to do that. So yeah, really enjoying that club. Also this year we've had, for the first time, seasonal boxes. So we did a spring box, so a yarn and treat box. We did one in spring. I didn't keep one, so I can't show you it. What I might do is, by the power of editing, put an image up here of what was in the spring box. It was inspired by peach blossoms and eucalyptus. So the two, you got two skeins of yarn. One was very sort of peachy and speckled, and the other one was like eucalyptus and sage green. And then within that box there were, for each of these kind of seasonal treat boxes, there will be another handmade item by a local maker, somebody who's local to me. So last time we had a lovely notions dish from Cornucopia Clay, and there was some lovely chocolate, and there was a mug and some tea and some handmade stitch markers for myself. So kind of gives you a gist. So at the moment we have our summer box in the shop, and that's very much inspired by kind of hazy summer evenings, wildflowers, meadows, that kind of thing, solstice. And yeah, so that's in the shop at the moment, on pre-order, and I'll be dyeing that up very soon. So I know what I'm going to do. I've got it all in my head, and I've got all the kind of the other bits, the local maker, working with a fabulous local maker for this one too, and I've got everything lined up, so that's really exciting. And I love putting these kind of boxes together, and I think, you know, they're kind of alternatives, aren't they? If you're not into a club, or if you're looking for a gift for a knitter or crocheter, then these are kind of nice things to have. I always put in pattern suggestions as well in the box, and I always do knit and crochet. That comes up quite a lot. I do both knit and crochet, but I knit far more often. But I think it's nice to have, you know, we want to cater to everybody. So I always have sort of both knit and crochet projects on there as well. So yeah, that's something to look at if you're into sort of these yarn treat boxes and something like that. And like I said, they're going to be seasonal, so there'll be one in autumn and there'll be one in winter as well. So checking my list, what else I wanted to tell you about Beehive. Started out by showing you my habitation throw, talking about Advent last year. It's the 2nd of May today, so we're not talking about Christmas. However, I have launched our 2023 Advent calendar, so it's available to pre-order if you like now. I know it's very early on. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, this, because I personally, as the dyer for advent calendars, know how much work goes into them, know how long it's going to take me, taking into account, as I mentioned earlier, the summer holidays and childcare and things. I like to get started as early as I can because it's a big piece of work. However, it's also very early in the year, so I launched my advent calendar, as did some other people, on the 1st of April. Some even came out even earlier than that. And I appreciate that it's probably not things that people are necessarily thinking of that early, but equally I get lots of people asking me about it as well. So it's a tricky one, really. It's hard to get the timing right. All I will say is mine will be open, the pre-order will be open until the end of May, at which point I will close and get started with the dyeing. So I've got prep I can do in the meantime, but the dyeing proper will start at the beginning of June. That gives me time to do a big chunk of work before the school holidays, and it also gives people to take time to make their choices, because there's hundreds of these amazing advent calendars out there. How do you make a choice? I do not know. So yeah, take your time. Pre-orders will be open till the end of May. I always dye a few extra, so I'll have extra to sell at the end, you know, after the others have gone out in October. But most importantly, you're not bothered about any of that. The theme of Advent this year is called patisserie. I'm going to try and ping some more images up here. I have no idea if I'm going to manage that or not, but have a look on my Instagram. I've got a Pinterest board as well set up. I'll pop a link below for the kind of visual imagery and the palette for that Advent calendar. It's very much inspired, as the name implies, by traditional kind of French patisserie. So think of like ladurée, macaron, all in different lovely pastel colours. Think of, you know, cream cakes and all the lovely kind of colours that you get in a shop window in Paris. But equally, it's very much inspired by a real favourite film of mine, for the aesthetic anyway, which is Marie Antoinette by Sofia Coppola. It came out a few years ago now, maybe. It was at least 11 years ago, because I got married 11 years ago and I had a kind of bit of a Marie Antoinette theme going on. So yeah, have a look at that film. It's a favourite of mine. Like I said, the soundtrack's bloody brilliant, nearly swore then. And the kind of dream-like, it's got a really dream, like Sofia Coppola, I think, is a director who has a really good taste in music for one, but she has lovely kind of dream-like soundtracks, and the aesthetic of a film is always very well thought through in terms of the topic. And the aesthetic of Marie Antoinette, it's not a perfect film, you know, but it's beautifully shot. It's beautiful colours, costumes, but also the food. So there's a really kind of famous scene in it where she's surrounded, you know, everybody knows like the meat cake and that quotation, but the film is about kind of this decadent lifestyle that the royals in France become famous for, and ultimately leads to their downfall. Not that you came here for a history lesson, you know this already, but yeah, the visuals are just stunning. So in a kind of cheeky nod to that, my Advent is all about these lovely edible mouth-watering colours, but also this kind of decadence to it. So it's going to be quite over the top. There's going to be pinks, of course, because it's quite a pink, you know, if you think about like fondants and sweets, there's a lot of pink. There's going to be pastels like the macarons that I mentioned, but there's also going to be some splashes of brighter colours like in the film. And also, you know, if you imagine like a lovely old-fashioned type cake with icing on, think of the kind of like the cherry on the top of it, which is usually a bright, you know, it's a bright red splash against a different colour. So there's going to be some brighter colours in it too. I cannot wait. I am so enthusiastic about this year's Advent, you can tell. I'm going to watch the film about 1,000,000 times. I've already had the soundtrack on all day, you know, and I'm dying wool. I can't wait. I've been planning the colours out. I'm really looking forward to it. What else can I tell you about it? Yeah, so for the first time this year, I am offering the kind of traditional Advent where traditional yarn Advent where you get 24 mini skeins, one to open each day or whenever you like. You can add a sock set on for Christmas Day, which I did last year and seemed to go down quite well. So you can, you know, if you want to open another skein on Christmas Day, then you can do, or again, whenever you like, whenever you open your countdown calendars. And For the first time this year, I'm also doing a set of 4 big skeins instead. So as an alternative, instead of getting the mini skeins, you can get sort of 4 100-gram skeins, and the 100-gram skeins will form a fade, a kind of classic fade in terms of colours. The Advent, I'm not intending to dye as a fade. I'll explain a bit more in a minute, but the colours will all go together, and undoubtedly you'll be able to kind of combine them into fades yourself, but I'm not planning it as a traditional fade. The reason that is, a lot of advent calendars are fades, and I always get asked, is it a fade, is it a fade? And I love fades myself. Obviously my blanket, all the colours fade together, but as a dyer, it's not my favourite thing to dye. I've got fades coming out in summer this year. I love putting collections together where you can, you know, mix and match and blend the colours. But the advent calendar, 24 colours that all form a single fade, whilst beautiful, is not personally my favourite thing to dye. And for this theme, I kind of saw it as more as a fun kind of pick and mix element to it. So the colours will all match. There will be some tonals, but the majority will be speckled. But it's not going to be a seamless fade from day one in, I don't think. And that's purely selfish. I wanted to do something a bit different. I've done fades for the last 4 years, and like I said, it's not my favourite thing to dye, and it's such a big part of the dyeing year. It's a big part of our work life, and a really fun part of it. I want it to be fun and I want to enjoy it, so that's the reason behind that. Loads of people, loads of you guys, I'm sure, have already signed up for it, and I'm massively grateful. Like I said, there's so many beautiful advent ideas and themes out there. I'm absolutely touched if you choose patisserie. I'm understanding if you don't as well, but thank you if you have ordered it, and I really cannot wait for you to get it and for me to dye it. So yeah, a bit of fun for the summer. I think it'll be really nice. So yeah, those are the big bits really that I wanted to share in terms of what we've got going on at the moment. From a shop perspective, it's going to be having these regular updates of existing, you know, of sock sets and in stock yarn, so that you know there's always something there. I've got a new newsletter provider, so if you're not on our newsletter list, sign up to that, because you get the first, you know, the first news on things that are happening, sneak previews and offers and things like that. So I'm going to try and be a bit better with newsletters this year as well. So yeah, the shop will be a mixture of that, and then it'll be a mixture of sort of big collections, and these kind of gift boxes and advents and things that I've been talking about. So I hope that sounds fun. What I will do, shall I, do I, don't I? No, I will. I'm intending to film these much more frequently, by the way. Like I said, it's sort of 6 months since I last spoke to you guys. A lot's happened. Hence we've gone over an hour, so sorry. My intention is to do them much more frequently, and, you know, therefore sort of have things to show you more on an ongoing basis. That being said, I may not have the time, or I may forget, or whatever it is, so I won't hold back, and I will show you what I'm currently working on. Just bear with me while I pause you. Right, okay, thanks for that. So summer, so I feel like I'm repeating myself an awful lot. There will be a steady flow of our existing colourways, and then there will be new collections. So at the moment I'm planning 2nd of May today. I'm planning at the end of May to launch our summer collection, which is called Dreamscape. I already have a colourway called Dreamscape, which came out last year. This is it. I've just picked up random bases. This is on our sparkle sock base, and it's a lovely purpley lilac, very bright, very speckled, for Beehive, bright, colourful, but I did tell you it was going to be colourful. And this is called Dreamscape. I think it came out last year. So I'm bringing it back, and the rest of the collection is kind of going to go from there. Now, I've only got 4 here to show you, but I'll just keep chucking them in view. This is a pinky one, again with the kind of bright speckles. This is called Grenadine. This is an existing colourway, which is more peachy. This is called Incense and Peppermints. Posted a picture of this on my Instagram stories the other day, and my friend Gemma immediately said, "Ooh, that's really different for you." And I laughed because it was literally one of the very first colours I ever dyed. When I launched Beehive Yarns, I had a collection called The Summer of Love. Everything was inspired by the kind of 1960 songs and the hippie movement, and this is called Incense and Peppermints. I haven't dyed it for years, maybe 5 years or so. So yeah, that's them kind of together at the moment. So it will be expanded. There are more bright colourways, hence me saying earlier that this kind of style, you know, would suit. They're very bright, but there will be more subdued ones, and there will be matching tonals. This one's called Very Periwinkle. This one hasn't got a name yet, but it's a lovely pink, and I'm going to knit some, I think, socks for myself. Obviously this is mohair. I'm not going to use this, but I'm going to use a mini skein and do some socks in those two colours. And there'll be, I think, 8 colours together in the collection. Wait a sec. Sorry, jumping all over the place today. But I just spotted these mini skeins on the table there, so I thought I'd show you them in mini form. Show you what I'm going for. I don't know if you can really see very well. Obviously I haven't got the full set of colours, so it probably isn't working, but it will be a fade of some description. There will be a plan and a sequence to the colours. There will be tonals as well as speckles, and as I said, the theme is called Dreamscape, so it's lovely and bright. It's not natural, if that makes sense. Unlike a lot of the colours I've shown you today, very much nature inspired, this is very much fantasy inspired. And it's really just from the fact, I mean, I love this colour, the colour that started it, but also it's about sort of dyeing what I want to go with at that time of year. When I first started Beehive Yarns, I had quite a fixed aesthetic, and I think all of us sort of yarn dyers and other, you know, pattern designers, etc., we do have an aesthetic, and you could probably say, oh, that, you know, that looks like Corner of Craft, or that looks like Beehive Yarns, or whatever it might be. When I started, everything, my yarn based names, which still are, all based on 1960s ladies, singers. So this is, I'm holding this one up particularly, but this is called Barbarella, the sparkly one. We have Bardot, we have Audrey, we have Aretha. They're all kind of 60s legends who were famous for having beehive hairdos. And a lot of my colourways, or most of the colourways, were very much retro inspired by the music of the time, like I said, or films and the aesthetic. And that is, I love that. I am a 60s girl. I have lots of vintage clothes, and I love that. And Beehive will always be that to me. But also, I like to go into phases where it's more earthy, and, you know, like our advent calendar is very much sort of nature themed and lots of natural colours and things like that. And sometimes I wonder, you know, do people think, oh gosh, she's really jumping around with this palette? I personally, they might think, oh, I really like the more natural, neutral tones, but this isn't for me. And that's fine. I will always try and have a mix. But when it comes to summer, for me, I automatically go for the brighter colours. And as somebody, you know, doing sort of the work behind the dyeing, which isn't that glamorous, it's nice to work with different colours. So yeah, I don't know why I mention it really, just in terms of how you see brands and how you see different aesthetics. And for me, I'll always jump around. My autumn range is very different again. It's the complete opposite to this. But I'm mindful that some people like the more muted ones and some people like the brighter ones. So there we go. You know, I'll always have a bit of everything, because for me, whilst I really admire companies that have a very kind of on-brand look and have a very, you know, an aesthetic and a colour palette that's sort of immediately recognisable, I personally am too obsessed with colour to want to stick to one palette. I like to jump around, so I just thought I'd explain that really. But yeah, so Dreamscape, a brighter collection, a floaty, dreamy collection for summertime, hopefully at the end of May. Let me know what you think. And as I said, I'll be adding more sock sets and more in-stock items to the shop as well in the meantime. I think that's everything I've got to tell you today. Do you remember that time I did a podcast and I forgot to pick my son up from school? Yeah. I haven't done that today. You'll be glad to know. It's only 1:10. But I have got bits to do. So I will love you and leave you. Sorry it's been such a long time. Sorry, therefore, I've had a lot to waffle on about because it's been ages since I saw you. But hopefully it won't be as long this time, and I hope you're all great and you have a lovely summer ahead of you. So thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.